What up, fam? Welcome to SkillTree, where we learn how to do just about everything. Today we're going to go super meta, and I'm going to show you how I go about making one of these episodes. I'm going to zoom that camera back and let you see how I go about selecting a topic, shooting the thing, editing it all together, all that good stuff. Now, each one of those topics could be an episode unto itself. I just want to kind of show you the process that I go through to make something like this. Links to all the topics are in the description in case you want to hop around. So a few of you skill monkeys have asked me questions about how this whole process works, and to be honest with you, it is a skill that I've been leveling up for a while now. When I first started the show, I had no idea what I was doing, and I've gotten much better, I think. So yeah, this is just a rundown about how I do it and what my process is. Is it the best one? I don't know. It's mine though, so learn from it what you will. And if you have any hot tips for me to make it better or more streamlined, leave it in the comments. I appreciate it. All right, with the scene all set, let's level up this skill. Topics and research. So my step one in any of these episodes is figuring out what the hell I'm going to cover. And I know, it sounds like that should be pretty simple. I mean, you guys provide me with a lot of really great ideas. But there's actually a bunch of little factors I have to consider. First are pretty straightforward. It's time, cost, weather. You know, if I want to forge something and it turns out to rain that day, not much I can do about that. And then, of course, I have to take into account the YouTube algorithm. Seriously, it's the bane of my existence, and I struggle with it. So in order for a channel to grow, it helps if you can find topics that are like trending and people are looking for. I am no good at this. I tend to just go towards the things that interest me and also that you've requested. But if I don't cover the topics that like the masses are looking for, then YouTube doesn't promote my videos, so no growth. I'm working on that though, so that I'm still covering things that are interesting, but that you want to see. So like Halloween was trending, and we have the leather work. We put that together, we made the Plague Doctor mask, and people seem to really like that. It was actually a really kind of a high growth video for me. The final point is my vision for the channel is I want there to be a good balance of skills, right? I don't want it to be just about one single niche thing. The whole point of it is finding things that you might be interested in, but you weren't sure how to approach, and just throwing yourself into it and seeing kind of what comes of that. To that end, I don't want to do too many of the same skills next to each other, so I try to do different things from different categories as much as possible. Okay, so once I finally lock down and choose my subject, it's time to start researching it. So I try to make sure that any new part of a skill we cover builds on and expands what we've already learned in previous times covering that skill. So between that and the fact that I genuinely am covering things that I don't have any expertise in whatsoever, a lot of times this research can take anywhere from 2 hours for really simple things to a few days for more complex things. So for my silkscreen episode, for example, it took about 2 hours for me to really kind of lock down what the steps are and all of the materials needed. My Beerstein episode, on the other hand, took a few days for me to research. Trying to assess the best materials to use, how to work around tools that I didn't have, food-safe finishes, all of that really took up a lot of time, and there's the internet, right? So there's a lot of conflicting points of views on what's the correct way to do a thing. It's really easy to get analysis paralysis while researching this stuff. So regardless of the complexity of the subject though, by the end of my research I should have a materials list or a list of points to cover, clear understanding of the process, and a plan or a design in mind. Once I get all of these things locked down, it's time to do the thing. So the majority of my content is either making something or doing something. On the episodes where I don't have to actually physically do a thing, I skip this part and I go right to like the script writing and the talking part that I'm doing right now. But for the majority of the content, this is a step where I film myself actually doing the thing. And this is where like the biggest disconnect is later on when I rewatch kind of an episode I've made. Something that I know took me like 5 hours to put together might make 30 seconds worth of film time. Then I went back in with that same scaly gravel stamp that I used on my shoulder and helmet armor. Again, links up here. With that providing the texture for all the empty space. And that's mostly because it'd be super boring for you to watch me like tooling leather for 20 minutes. Another interesting part about this process is the fact that it isn't just the me doing the project, but it's also all the camera and lighting moves. So things that generally would take like, 10 minutes to do can take 2 to 3 times that because I'm trying to get the right angles. I'm trying to change angles a few times so you see it from a couple different views. Every time I move my camera, I have to move my lighting because, if the light's coming in from this way, all the shadows are being cast this way. So now if I have the camera on this side, you're getting a lot of shade and something's not well lit. Lighting's a whole art form by itself. If you guys are interested, leave it in the comments and we can level up that skill too. Oh, also a quick note while we're talking about cameras and lighting. My camera is a Canon 80D, and I have just kind of some LED lights around or whatever. But if you're looking to get started and doing some video production or doing some stuff for YouTube, you don't need that junk. You could just use a cell phone and a few lights that you get at Home Depot. For example, this bit is just being done on my cell phone. So you don't really need a lot of technology to get started. I mean, the cameras that are in cell phones now are so good that you could really just use that. Now, obviously, this phase varies from project to project. My little forge that I made in the backyard took me only about 4 hours to make. The leather cuirass from last episode took me a solid 2 days, starting at 8 a.m. and ending well after midnight. Now, some of that has to do with the complexity of the project, and some of it has to do with the fact that I don't know what I'm doing through a lot of it. There's a lot of figuring out of a thing that you don't actually get to see on a camera because I cut it out. That being said, I have tossed around that thought. I mean, is it interesting for you to see kind of some of the process I go through and the trouble I run into while I'm doing it? I guess in other words, rather than it being this portion here where I'm talking at the camera explaining things and you're kind of seeing me do things at a separate session, would it be fun to have me talking to the camera while I'm making the thing? I don't know, you let me know. I'm interested to play with that model if you guys think it would be interesting to watch. But regardless of how long it takes or how complex the project is, eventually it's done. At that point, it's time to take my footage and move on to talking head. The talking head is what I lovingly call what I'm doing right now. I've got my lights set up, I've got the camera, I got my little script here, and I'm explaining to you what I did during the project. So it was exactly this moment while editing that I noticed that I had some sort of like spider web or string in my hair. I think it happened when I switched from the camera to the phone view to show you that. Now, normally, I'd re-record everything that happened from that point on, but I'm gonna leave it because it's a perfect example of things that can happen that can totally derail my editing process. Try not to let it distract you. That's all I can see now. There are a couple of steps before I get to this portion though. First, I pick out the best clips from my project footage and I put them in order. I then use those as a basis for my script. This way I make sure when I do this part, I'm explaining everything in the correct order and I can mention the things that are being shown on the screen. Once all those little clips are laid out, the actual script writing part usually takes around 4 to 5 hours for me. After that, I come here and I do this. Most of the times it's planned out, so when you're not seeing me on camera, I'm straight up reading. It just makes it a lot easier for me to make sure the flow is exactly how I need it to be. Then I have little built-in marks to where I'm actually looking at the camera and speaking to you. Then, of course, there's a lot of the ad-lib. Most of the goofy stuff I say is just whatever pops to the top of my noggin. That's all me. I guess I write the script. Technically, it's all me. Often, each thing I say is done in multiple takes. I then take the one that I like best, and that's the one that I end up using for the finished product. This part, to me, is a lot of fun. Because I do have an actual relationship with a lot of you. We talk on Discord, we chat throughout the day. A lot of times it feels like I'm talking directly to you, so I don't know, it's like goofing around with friends, it's nice. But once I'm done filming this part, we then have all the ingredients needed to bake the cake that is our show. Which brings us to our final step, editing. The editing part of the process is probably the most artistic part for me. This is where I can select from multiple angles and takes, and I put them together to music and add little elements into it to make it look fun. I could also bank on it being one of the more time intensives, regardless of how complex the topic is. So first things first, in my linear editor of choice, which is Premiere Pro, I line up all the shots I like the best and make sure everything coincides with each other. So when I'm saying like, I use the background tool to fill in the space here, I make sure the shot that you're seeing is actually me using the background tool, filling in that space and from an interesting angle that's well lit. Often during this process, I think of little gimmicks and things that would be fun to add in which case I keep a running list and I run back down and I film those really quickly too. Once that's all together, I add in the styling, the color grading, changes in scale and position, volume adjustments, all of that stuff. And just make sure that the general flow feels nice. I'm not lingering on one thing for too long or showing things too kind of fast and cut together. Finally, I have to add in all of my elements. I pick out the music that I like. I search for GIFs and kind of fun images to show while I'm talking. This is also where I add in kind of the staple features to my show, like the level bar here and the plates that you see that say kind of what step you're on. Each one of those plates, by the way, I create in a separate file in After Effects. Unless I'm smart enough to think ahead and I can use one of the plates from like past episodes. So like in leather crafting, I have like a putting it all together. plate that I use continually, and that's awesome because it's such a time saver. It's really good. I can be a bit of a perfectionist, so I have to like an episode before I release it, and generally by the end of it, it's been a good few days, and I hate the sound of my voice. That's really strongly put, but I do get really kind of tired of listening to myself explain the same steps like 40 times. Anyways, at this point, all that's left to do is to upload it to YouTube and to add in all the descriptions and the tags and all that stuff. And there you have it. That's how I put together a YouTube episode. I'm sure every different YouTuber probably has a similar but different flow to the way they do things. And if you decide to give it a shot, I'm sure you're going to come up with your own system too. Hopefully seeing how somebody else does it helps you though, and maybe comes up with ideas of how you want to approach it if that's what you're looking to do. I found that the hardest one for me to shoot and to put out was my first one. Getting over, like, I'm going to put out a video that the entire world at some point could see if they wanted to. That can be a little bit jarring, and I feel like you make a lot of excuses along the way saying, well, I don't have the right camera set up, and I don't have the right lighting, and, you know, I need to have just the perfect set. You don't need any of that. Get started. Know that your first few are probably going to be bad. Mine were definitely bad. But you get better and you get into a flow, and I'm genuinely proud of the episodes I release. If I wasn't, I wouldn't release them, or I'd reshoot them. I've done that before. I've reshot entire episodes just because I didn't like how it turned out. I didn't like the flow of the thing. The lighting wasn't right. I've done it. So this is me highlighting a thing that I made. Here's a few things that you skill monkeys have made. Check these out. Our community is so cool. I love that you guys are jumping on the Discord page and you're sharing these with me. I learned so much just from the chatter that goes on Discord. If you like the stuff that's on this channel, you definitely want to join the Discord community. Link in the description. Also, if you like this episode, why don't you hit me with that thumbs up love and hit subscribe and the bell icon so you know when I release new content. Finally, if there's a skill you want me to cover, leave it in the comment section and I will add it to the list. All right, well, I should go. As you saw, it's like a week-long process to get one of these episodes out, and time's a ticking. In the meantime, keep leveling up, you.